Hello and welcome to .Root's C# Fundamentals. This lecture will talk about the course materials that you'll need to complete this class successfully. In this course, we'll be using Microsoft Visual Studio for all the programming exercises, homework, and reviews. I'll personally be using Microsoft Visual 2012 because that's simply the version that I had installed on my main desktop. But I also have on my laptops 2013, 2010, and 2015, and any version of Microsoft Visual Studio will work for this course. So if you see me using Microsoft Visual Studio 2012 and you have a different version of Microsoft Visual Studio, or maybe you have the Express version, do not worry, it'll be okay. Any of the fundamentals that we cover in this course will be universal to any version of Microsoft Visual Studio that you are using. That being said, I would definitely recommend that you use something between 2012 and 2015, and I'll show you where to download these later on. In terms of recommended materials, I would recommend getting a notebook to take notes. There's a lot of concepts, a lot of vocabulary, and a lot of critical thinking throughout this course, and it's good to have a notebook to go back and review. I'd also recommend getting Microsoft Visual Studio 2012. If you're a student or an instructor at a college, you can probably get this for free from Microsoft, and I'll show you how if you're a student. However, if you're not a student, I believe you get a 30-day free trial, otherwise you'll have to purchase it. Now there are some other free versions such as Microsoft Visual Studio 2015, I believe is free right now. You're welcome to download that. You're also able to download the Microsoft Visual Studio Express version and simply choose C# as the programming language you wish to use. The other thing that's important is you need to make sure that your .NET framework is up to date. Now, if you're downloading Visual Studio for the first time, you can also just click and update it while you're installing Visual Studio, so you'll knock out two birds with one stone. So let me show you in a browser how we get to install Microsoft Visual Studio from Microsoft's website. Alright, so if we're gonna find Microsoft Visual Studio, we can start in Google, or you can go to google.com. And we're gonna type Microsoft Visual Studio, and we're going to search. Now, the first thing you'll notice is the Visual Studio Microsoft Developers Tools website. I'm an English user, so it's going to automatically populate the en-us, so it might be different for you if you're in a different country, but hopefully this makes sense to you. If not, at least you can follow along best you can. Now, it says here that if you want to download the newest version, you'll see right here it says download free 90-day trial of Visual Studio products. And you can click download, and you can go ahead and download the 90-day free trial and then purchase it later if you choose to. Now, this course probably won't take you 90 days to complete. So honestly, I don't even know if I would worry about which version I was using, because if you use the newest version and you're worried about money, you could probably finish this course within a 90-day period, and so you wouldn't even have to worry about your extended time beyond the trial. So with that being said, you could go ahead and download the newest version. And again, it won't matter that you're using 2015 and that the videos are in 2012 format, because the coding is all the same. The other thing you could do if you want to download the Visual Studio Express version is you can go back to Google and you can type something like Microsoft Visual Studio 2012 Express. You can get something like this. Download Microsoft Visual Studio Express 2012 for Windows. Pick what language you want and download. Now, this would be the closest you could get to actually using Microsoft Visual Studio like I am in terms of the 2012 version. But again, the interface is pretty much the same, but essentially it will be the same for whatever version you use. So you would just click download, and you could click full, or you could click ISO if you wanted to burn it to a CD, but generally just stick with the EXEs. When it downloads, it'll ask you what version you want to use, which I'll run it real quick, we'll see here. Okay, so when it downloads, you would agree to the terms. You would go ahead and hit install, and it would go ahead and install Microsoft Visual Studio Express 2012. I'm going to go ahead and transition to the end of this installation so you could see what other steps you need to do, but just know it's going to install a bunch of things automatically that you won't have to worry about, such as your core libraries, such as Visual C++, Visual C Sharp, etc. Even though we won't be using them, it'll still install them, and you can use them in other courses if you want. Okay, so Visual Studio Express 2012 has completed its installation. Setup was successful. I'm going to hit launch. Okay, when you get to this screen, it's going to say the product will expire in 30 days. Registration is required for continued use of Microsoft Visual Studio Express for Windows Desktop. You can go ahead and register online. When you do so, it'll bring up Microsoft, and you have to sign in or create a Microsoft website account. So if I did that now, and go ahead and just create account, I'm going to transition beyond this so you can see what happens on the next page. Okay, once you're done verifying your email, it's going to bring you to the Profile Center, in which you can go ahead and answer 2 questions, such as, are you using this for academic, business, or personal use? You can say personal. And are you creating software for public distribution, online use, or private use? Just use private, and go ahead and click continue. Okay, once you get the product key, you're going to have to enter it into Visual Studio. So go ahead and do that now and hit next. Product key is being validated and you are all set. Now it's going to go ahead and load your user settings. It'll say it might take a few minutes to do so. Once it loads, you can go ahead and anytime we use it and you go to a new project, make sure you deal with Microsoft Visual C Sharp. And you'll notice that the only 2 that we'll be dealing with are window form application and console applications for this class. I have more options in Visual Studio 2012, but the Express version will handle everything that you need to do for this class. So again, as one final reminder, it does not matter what version of Visual Studio or Visual Studio Express that you use, because anything we deal with in this course is universal to all the basic and intermediate fundamentals for C#. If you use Express like I'm showing you in this video, you'll notice that they have the Windows Form application and the console application, which is what you need to design for this class. Visual Studio has more options, but that doesn't mean that we're going to use them. The other thing that's important is that you have to make sure that you have Visual C# checked, which again in Visual Studio 2012, 2013, and 2015, this all looks the same regardless of whether or not you use the Express version or the premium version. Hopefully this helps you guys out. If you have any other questions, open up a discussion thread, send me a message. I encourage you to get in contact with me so that I can have more feedback in terms of helping you guys out understanding how to take the course.